What's up, everyone? I'm Derek with Euro Superbike Life.
Don't you mean Mr. Stick in the Mud? What's up, everyone? I'm Devlin.
On today's episode, I'm going to be changing...
Whoa. You mean we? We're going to do this.
We are going to be changing the front brake pads on this beautiful 2012 BMW S1000RR. So... never mind. Just roll the intro.
Don't you hear that beat?
Welcome back, everyone. So the first thing we want to do in this job is put the bike up on a rear stand.
The first thing we need to do was go riding rather than working on some stupid brake pads.
What? Don't you have anything better to do?
Nah, I'm good. Really, I'm good.
Figures. So anyway, the first thing we want to do is put the bike up on a stand. I'm using a rear stand by Harris, but you can use a paddock stand or a front pin stand that goes up under the triple tree, or like I said, a paddock stand that gets both wheels up off the ground. Whatever works for you, as long as the bike is stable. We're going to be removing the calipers, so we don't want the bike to fall over. So why don't we go and take a look at the tools that we're going to need for this job. Ignore him, by the way.
Yeah, good luck with that.
So here are all the tools that we're going to need for this job. Let's go through them one by one. Over here on my left, we have a 3/8 drive ratchet with a 13mm socket. We have a torque wrench, needle nose pliers, some channel locks, shop towels, blue painter's masking tape, some blue Loctite, and of course, our pads. So your front wheel has 2 calipers. Each caliper has 4 pads, so you're going to need 2 sets of your favorite pad. That's it. On a difficulty scale, 1 being super easy, 10 being super difficult, this is about a 3. So the next thing we want to do is we want to remove the reservoir cap on our brake fluid reservoir here. And the reason we want to do that is when we remove the calipers, we're going to have to squeeze the pistons back into the caliper, and when that does, fluid backs up in here. We don't want to create any pressure and you know, blow out seals or do anything harmful. So we're not over full here, so it shouldn't be a big deal, but we want to just grab our Phillips head screwdriver and remove the clamp on the side and then remove the cap. Now if you have an aftermarket reservoir, I suggest you consult your owner's manual on how to properly remove the cap there. So there we go. The cap is removed. And I'm just going to, just in case, because brake fluid is corrosive, I don't want to get all over my bike, so we're going to wrap that around there. All right, now let's move to the front wheel and start removing some calipers. Okay, so we're down here by the front wheel, and the first thing we want to do down here is we want to grab our blue painter's masking tape. We want to tape off the wheel right behind the caliper. And the reason we want to do that is most sport bikes have their calipers set inside the wheel. Now, this S1000 isn't as bad as, say, my Ducati Panigale, but they are inside the wheel a little bit here. And what happens is once you remove these caliper bolts, once you start to slide the caliper off, there's a very good chance that you could hit your wheel and ding the paint or whatever carbon fiber on your wheel. And we certainly don't want that. So grab yourself a strip of blue masking tape or whatever color, duct tape, whatever, and just sort of put it behind the wheel, just like that. Doesn't need to be perfect. It just provides a little bit of protection should we hit that. Next, we want to grab our 3/8 ratchet with our 13mm socket and remove some caliper bolts. So. Alright, and there's 2. I'm going to set those aside. And now all we want to do is slide the caliper off nice and easy and then sort of give it a turn so we don't hit our wheel. And there we go. Here's our caliper with our 4 worn out pads in them, sitting in the pad stops. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And here we have our front pad retaining springs and the slide pins. So to remove the pads, all we do is we apply pressure to these springs in a downward manner, and then we pull the pins out. Now you want to make note of the orientation of your springs so that you put them back in the correct way. Now, if you try to put them back in the other way, it really won't work, so don't be overly concerned about that. But I'm going to grab my needle nose pliers here, and I'm going to apply pressure, and then I'm going to pull that pin out. Now, the more pressure you apply here, the easier these slide pins come out. And there's one slide pin, and now the spring pops out, and now we can grab our worn out pads. So there's one sad looking pad, and here is the other. Now we do the same thing at the top. Squeeze this as hard as we can there. We remove our spring, and now we can remove said pad. Here's one, and here's two. All right, now the pads are out.
Aren't you done yet?
What do you want? Can't you see I'm working here? Go find something to do already.
What the?
That guy, I don't know what to say about him. Anyway, now we just put our new pads back in reverse order. So let me go and grab our new pads, put them back in. Here are our new pads, and they don't go in any particular order. I mean, there's not a left or right or front or back. They're all the same pads. So you just need to grab one of your pads and slide it in the same way it came out. So there's a pointy end here on the top of your pad that goes in the top. So we just slide that back down in. I take that back. So actually it's not too bad. Our pistons aren't poking out, but if your pistons were sticking out, and they were for your worn pads, what you want to do is grab a shop towel and your channel lock pliers, and we want to squeeze those in. Now some of you may be able to do it by hand, but FYI, I do it just like this to protect the caliper. So put them in here, and we squeeze, and then the same thing on the other side. We squeeze, and then we squeeze. And what this does is, let me see if you can see here, this compresses your caliper pistons back into their mounting locations. So we get more space for our new pads. We grab our pad and we slide it in till it sits on the bottom, our pad seat there. We do the same thing on the other side. Slide the pad down till it sits on the bottom. And I sort of try to hold it with my finger on the bottom there, sort of like that, so that they sort of stay apart. We grab our spring, and we put our spring back in the same way it came out. Now we compress the spring, and then we slide in our slide pin in. Okay, so sorry about that. So what we want to do is when we slide our slide pin in on the caliper, and you shouldn't let it dangle like this, so don't copy me, but when the slide pin goes into the clip here, you can see that there are some grooves. There are some grooves here and here on this slide pin, and that is because this clip is supposed to sit in those grooves, excuse me, like so. See that? Like so. So when you're putting your spring on, like this, and you're compressing it down, you want to make sure that your pin comes in over like this and not behind it. We want to make sure that pin comes in and sits right in here. So FYI. So let's do the same thing with the top here. We'll slide in our pad. We'll slide in the other pad. We'll put in our spring. You can see our new pads are sitting on the seats. We have plenty of space in here to slide it onto our rotor. The springs are back in. The slide pins are all seated. Our springs are in the groove, so we are really good there. So now all we do is we slide nice and easy. Don't want to ding our wheels or mar our rotors. We slide our caliper back to the rotor, like so. We then grab our blue Loctite, which is here, and we're going to grab some blue Loctite, a dab there, and we're just going to put some on our bolt. Slide the first one in. No need to overdo it. I mean, we do want these things to come off at a later date. And we'll grab another dab, the bolt, and we'll just put some on the bottom there. Alright. Put the bolt back in. Now what I like to do is I like to turn them in finger tight until they're seated, and then I will torque them down to the proper specs rather than trying to grab my ratchet here and hook it up. Okay, so we are seated here. Now I'm going to grab my torque wrench and I'm going to set it to the proper torque, which is 38 Newton meters or 28 foot-pounds. So I'm already set here. Don't know if you can see it, but it's the correct setting here. So and we're just going to torque these down. And there's really not that much, so you don't want to go. There we go, one. And just we'll make sure that's it. Then we remove our blue painter's tape, and that is it for this side. You just repeat the exact same process on the other side, and once you're done, then we can grab our levers here and we can give a couple of squeezes. Now you don't want to operate or touch this at all if your caliper and pads are not on the bike. Otherwise, you can extend the piston. You can actually push the piston right out of the caliper and it'll make a mess, and you don't want to do that. You'll need new seals and you have to bleed the brakes and do all that stuff. But if we're just replacing pads, you should not have to bleed the brakes. If you do, then you probably got air in there somewhere and there's another problem that you need to investigate beyond just changing the pads. But I've already gone ahead and done the other side, so I'm going to give this a few pumps, and you can see it's super easy. It's falling all the way to the back. But right now what I'm doing is I'm moving the pistons back out, and and as you can see, it's starting to tighten up here. And there we go. Now I have full brakes again, and we are good. That is replacing the front brakes on a 2011 BMW S1000RR. Real simple. So now let's go ride this thing. I'm Derek, along with that other guy. Don't worry about him. This was Euro Superbike Life. Thanks for watching. And as always, if you like this video, please click like, subscribe, because I love doing this stuff. But until then, stay safe. Bye now.